Hola amigos, welcome to How to Learn Spanish. My name is Levi Flint. In this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about the difference between learning Spanish and acquiring Spanish. Okay, there is definitely a difference, and in this episode, I want to talk about the subtle differences between the two and kind of reflect on what it is that we're doing and why we are doing it and why we want to avoid doing certain things that maybe we're not doing at this point. Okay, so before diving into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know that there are two ways you can support this podcast and support me. Number one is head over to Apple Podcasts, give this a 5-star review if you find value in it, if it's helping you, give yourself some structure, understanding how to learn Spanish, giving yourself some sort of boundaries and methodology that you can follow, and also leave a comment. Let me know what you think. The other way that you can support this podcast is to check out my course, Fluency Hour. Fluency Hour is a course, it's a month-long program that teaches you how to learn Spanish. So it takes you step by step, holds your hand, you get daily emails, you get access to a Facebook group, you get access to videos, a video course, and basically the idea is to just give you the hand-holding, the mentorship, the guidance, the structure that you need to go from whatever level you're at to an upper intermediate level of fluency in Espanol. So check that out. You can check it out over at MexicanFluency.com. I also have another podcast, another course over there as well. So just head over to MexicanFluency.com. Check it out. I think you're going to like what you find. Let's dive into this episode of the podcast. So at this point in time, we have already started listening to Real Spanish. You know, this is our system, right? We're listening to Spanish on a daily basis. We have a fluency mindset. We know what our goal is, give or take, right? We're not looking to become perfect in the language. We're looking to have an upper intermediate level of fluency. And we know that we're still going to make mistakes. We know that we're still going to be having to ask a lot of questions and look a lot of things up. And that's completely fine. And if we're still doing that, but we are continuing to raise our level every week, every month, we're on the path to fluency. What else are we doing? At this point in time, if you've been listening to the podcast, you should be doing Pimsleur. And I recommended you do 3 levels of Pimsleur. So that's 3 months of Pimsleur at the minimum. And you're going to be doing 1 lesson per day, 30 minutes. You can repeat that lesson. If you do it in the morning and you think that you didn't do that great of a job, you can repeat it in the afternoon. But just that one lesson, focus on that 30 minutes of content a day. Also, I recommended in last episode that we're going to begin studying Spanish with Duolingo. We're going to begin practicing our Spanish with Duolingo. And this is kind of like a gamified way of learning. It's a fun way of learning. It's not a super serious way. You don't feel like you're having to memorize necessarily that many rules or that many things. It's supposed to be fun. So when we talk about learning versus acquiring a language, I just want to talk about the differences between these two really quick. And the idea here is we just want to reflect on what we've done, and it will help you to understand this methodology a bit more. So whenever we talk about learning a language, okay, what comes to mind? So if you have taken a Spanish class or any other language class in the past, that's pretty much what you're doing, right? You're learning a language. So when you're learning a language, you are memorizing grammar rules. You are memorizing vocabulary lists. You're studying verb conjugations and trying to drill those into your mind. Think of learning as basically anything that you are doing or you have done that is something that you would have never done as a child learning your first language. Right? In this case, probably English, right? You would have never done that with English. They didn't give you that kind of stuff when you're a baby and go, okay, we're going to learn English here, or whatever your first language is. So that's learning. Now, when we talk about acquiring, or when linguists talk about acquiring a language, what we mean is you are learning subconsciously. You're learning without, I don't want to say without effort, because you are trying, but you're learning in a way that is going to be more conversational, more natural. Some characteristics of the language are going to be acquired. They're going to be what I mean is that you're going to realize that you have them as part of your linguistic arsenal without you having tried to memorize said thing, right? So an example of this could be you're learning how to say I am going to the store, right? And you ask somebody, how do I say I am going to the store? And they'll say, voy a la tienda. Okay? And so you can catch like voy, right? You can catch the verb is yo voy. And tienda, okay? Tienda, that's store. And so as you are hearing other people say it, unless you're studying the grammar, if you're just on the street or you're with somebody conversationally, eventually you will begin to acquire the complete sentence, the voy a la tienda, okay? Yo voy a la tienda. Little things like that. You'll learn the little prepositions will just kind of become part of your ability, right? And a lot of things like that happen when you're learning a language. It's impossible to remember every single little tiny detail of a grammar. You're going to just kind of subconsciously acquire these things through use, through just hearing them. And that's why we do so much of what we're doing up to this point in time. If you realize up till this point in time, we haven't really done a lot of learning necessarily. And what I mean, again, with learning is like a lot of just sitting down and trying to memorize and drill into our head certain things. So I'm having you listen to a lot of Spanish. And one of the reasons for that is because I want you to begin to acquire language like when you're a kid. So that's the first step, is just to start listening. And it's the exact same thing that we do whenever we're little babies. We're laying in the crib and we're hearing mom talk, dad talk, have a conversation. We're hearing the TV in the background. We are watching cartoons, all these things. So we are acquiring the language. And that's what I want to get you guys to do in the very beginning. Just listen, and ideally continue to listen. Also with Pimsleur is a very, very kind of unconventional way of learning Spanish, or any language really. So you're doing a lot of listen and repeat, and there is some degree of memorization, but it's not like you're staring at a list of things you have to memorize. I would say it is learning, but in the most natural way that we can possibly get you to learn. It's using memory tricks, linguistic tricks to help you recall certain things later down the road. And it's almost like effortless. Now, you will feel like you're giving effort with Pimsleur, but the idea is that you're just listening to so much real language. You're practicing speaking real language, and so that it's a little bit more of a natural process. Also with Duolingo, like for example, there are teaching tabs that you can click on for, let's say you're learning present tense verbs, and you can go in there and you can read and learn the rules of a said lesson in Duolingo. Depending on if you're looking what kind of grammatical lesson you're looking at, you can go in there, and Duolingo has that option for you. However, to use Duolingo, you don't actually have to force yourself to learn, aka reading grammatical rules and things like that, trying to memorize things. You can just go in and enjoy the lesson, which is like a gamified, free-flowing type of thing. You can make mistakes, and there's not really anything wrong with that at all. So Duolingo is kind of interesting. They do both. They put you in a position to be acquiring the language just by playing a game, not really even struggling to memorize certain things. You're just playing a game. You're having fun with the language. And over time, through repetition, you're acquiring it. And they also give you the ability to learn the language, okay? So you can go in and read the rules and read why the language does this, why the language does that. Why do we say these things? And so there you have it. Okay, that's really the difference between learning a language, acquiring a language. The way I see it is that our goal when learning Spanish is definitely to acquire Spanish. We want to have this kind of immersive type of learning pattern, okay, learning methodology. We want to do that. That's ideal. We're going to learn the language on a much deeper, more subconscious level. So it's not always just something that we're, oh man, I have to remember all these facts, all these tidbits about the language. That's going to be really hard to do, and it takes a long, long, long time. So we want acquisition to be our main focus. We want to be learning intuitively in a fun way, in a communicative way. But we want to be using what I call our adult advantage, which is being able to analyze and to read. That's something we can't do as a baby and do as a little kid. So by occasionally analyzing grammar, analyzing rules, memorizing, we're going to do more memorization of vocabulary here and coming episodes of the podcast. But just understand that the whole idea of learning is a way to just speed up, right? We want to use our adult advantage, learning Spanish periodically, here and there, when necessary, and we want to do that to help us get over humps and to make progress a little faster than we would otherwise. If it was pure acquisition, pure immersion, it might take us a lot longer, honestly, to acquire the language. But with the learning aspect thrown in here and there, sprinkled here and there in our methodology and our system, that is really going to help us to get over different hurdles, to make more progress. But if we're just doing pure learning like you do in a lot of classrooms, in a lot of language and a lot of Spanish classrooms, you might have experienced this, then it is going to be hard to really communicate. Right? You might think, oh, I learned a lot of Spanish, but how much can you communicate? I feel like that I might have made that a little more confusing than it needed to be, but hopefully not. I'm going to go back and listen to this episode. So listen to this episode again if some things went over your head. Hopefully everything is very clear though. And my point of this episode is really just to have you kind of reflect on what it is that we're doing, and understand why we're doing things this way. And again, we are definitely going to be diving into a little bit more actual learning, and some recommendations that I have for learning Spanish a little faster, learning grammar and things like that, understanding more of the rules. But understand that is not really what I think is going to make the biggest difference. If we're going for pure communication skills, definitely focusing on acquiring the language, and we're doing that. As you can tell, we're doing a lot of immersive type of things. We're doing a lot of things that are going to be not traditional classroom type of things. So hopefully that helps you understand. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me over at levi@mexicanfluency.com. Again, guys, make sure to check out the website and to explore everything that I have going on. Follow me over at Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc., etc. I have lots of content, lots of lessons and fun stuff there. Until next episode of the podcast. Adios.